Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our first in our seventh annual Community and Youth Organizing Youth Activism series at CUNY SPS's Youth Studies program. We're so happy to have you here with us tonight. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to the events team at CUNY SPS for organizing us. And I just want to reflect for a moment on this moment because we gathered today, kind of riding a wave of activism that ushered in a mayor who's trying to make the city affordable to more than just the rich. We gathered today at a moment um, when I was just talking to Lumumba, when ICE terrorism has taken a life today. We gather today at a moment where we've kidnapped a president. We gather at a moment when families are still suffering in Gaza, in Sudan, in Brooklyn, or in New York City. So, we there's always the need for resistance. There's always the need to sharpen our skills and our toolkit. And I'm so grateful for our amazing Professor Lumumba Bandele, who always finds the most amazing people to come educate us. And so our Professor Lumumba Bandele has been the person that has been guiding this series for the past 7 years and is the professor of our class. He's been, teaching in the CUNYverse for decades, and you may know that if you've been coming to this series for a while. You may know that he's been an activist for decades. Now, you may not know, though, that he's also an incredible DJ. He is somebody who's put on, concerts. He's been promoting, and he intimately knows kind of the transformative power of arts and its relationship to movement. So I'm going to pass it over you to Professor Bandele with tremendous gratitude, and you can introduce our illustrious Jamal Joseph. So I'll pass it on to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zella Berkman. Appreciate you, and thank you for creating the space for us to not only have this class, but also have this annual time for us to be in community with the CUNY community, and as you call it, CUNYverse and broader community. And I'm always pleased when people tell me, "Oh, I joined your film series the other day and it was great." And so I'm always really pleased when it goes beyond the usual suspects. So thank you for making space and time to make this happen. Greetings, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today, and thank you for being here for our kickoff of the series. Today, we are starting off this series that will be focusing on the impact of art, and I'm using that language intentionally, on social justice, the role of art in movement. And we're going to be looking at we're going to have three different series. Today is the first one. And we're honored today. I'm honored, and we're blessed and fortunate to have with us a man who has, I think, been a part of shaping the city and shaping our country's history. And we're going to talk specifically, though, about an institution that he created, the IMPACT Repertory Theatre, and we have with us Brother Jamal Joseph. So before I actually give him a full and proper introduction, I want to just do some housekeeping. This is the conversation. We want you all to engage, to be involved, to participate. And so we're going to ask that you just write down whatever questions you have. The floor will not be open. We are not going to make space for folks to just jump in and intervene, no. But we want you to be able to submit your questions using the Q&A button on your screen. Captions are available, via the Zoom caption at the bottom. And if you experience any tech issues, please use the chat box so that our team can get on it. But we are really, really encouraging all of you to join us in this conversation. So, um, we're going to talk about Impact Repertory Theater at length today, and we're honored to have with us the founder, the executive director of Impact Repertory Theater. But he's more than that. He's also an institution builder, a community organizer, an artist, a professor, an all around powerhouse, and someone that I have been inspired by. I've actually learned from. He may not know this, but literally things that he shared on panels that have like been the catalyst for me to do a whole other campaigns and initiatives. But we're honored to have with us Baba Jamal Joseph to be in conversation with. So please, if you can, throw some emojis up in there, hard hand clapping. If we were in physical space, we would do a round of applause. But please show your appreciation for this amazing brother teacher that we're going to be in conversation with. So before we do that, Baba Joseph, did you want to just say some opening remarks, and we're going to get in the conversation after that? But please, just I see you were preparing to talk.
Well, thank you, uh, Professor Bandele. I love saying that. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great way to start the year. As Dr. Berkman said, it is on a tragic day where we see what happens in the police state. Uh, but what we know is that art has represented a key weapon in resistance um, throughout the history of struggle globally, uh, but especially for oppressed people in this country. Um, in the music and the dance, in the coded messages of the enslavement resistance, where slaves had their talking drums and the coded songs and the hope. Um, Baba Bilal Suni Ali, um, who became an ancestor last year, talked about the body being tuned when we were in prison together. Uh, he talked about that and talked about how certain notes and frequencies can heal the spirit and energize the spirit. Um, so it's great to be here to discuss the arts in that way, and especially the effect it can have on young people, especially when it's a space like Impact where they're empowered to tell their stories and to get their messages out to the community and the world.
Wonderful. So before we get into this, I just want to just contextualize this. I know people are hearing me refer to Jamal Joseph as Baba Jamal, just so you know. Baba is a Swahili term that means father. It also means elder. Having grown up, being mentored and taught by not only Baba Jamal Joseph, but his comrades, his colleagues, it is a form of intentional respect. We are more than, I mean, professor doesn't do it enough justice. He is a professor at Columbia. He's all of those things. But for me, one of the highest titles that someone can have is Baba. And so I do that as a reference to who he is and what he's contributed to our community. So when you hear me say that, that's not his name. It's his title, just so you know. So I want to introduce Impact, but I want to do that in a way by actually allowing Impact to talk to us directly. And further context for this evening, instead of having one documentary where we show the documentary and then we have a post-screening conversation, we're actually going to do what's called clips and conversation. And I need to actually give props to where I got this from. This actually came from, this concept came from, at least I saw it first, at the Martha Vineyard Film Festival, where they, instead of showing a full film, they actually showed just different clips. And I thought it was a really interesting and effective way to actually disrupt this just sort of blocks way of doing it, but actually taking moments to talk about pieces and then returning back to the content in itself. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to start off with a sort of, I think this is like a 20-year clip of Impact, looking at its work from 1997 to 2017. And so we're going to start off with this clip, and then we're going to come back and talk with Baba Jamal about his vision in terms of founding Impact and the work that it has been doing. So if we can start off with that clip, we will proceed.
What is impact?
It's not a game.
What is impact?
It's not a game.
Come, it's not a game.
Because what we do now matters forever.
Because what?
Because what we do now matters forever.
How long is forever?
Forever and ever and ever.
And the I stands for?
Inspiration.
M.
Motivation.
D.
Preparation.
A.
Activism.
C.
Commitment.
T.
Teamwork.
And our credo is?
We are youth activists who use the creative arts and leadership training as a way to develop ourselves and change the world in a positive way. We believe that we must be the message that we bring through hard work, focus, discipline, unity, and the principles of SOS. Safe space, outstanding effort, and service to our family, friends, and communities.
So hanging there with me. Sometimes we need another helping hand to show the way. So don't give up.
I would say when I was young, I was all over the place. I would sing, I would dance, I would act, and it was rough because I wasn't accepted in certain areas or around certain people, or even with the people around my community. So when I came to Impact, there were other people just like me.
I had little family, so if I needed to talk to someone, I was always able to come and talk to someone with an impact, and that gave me a lot more confidence, and I felt safe being at Impact, being able to open up and being able to share what was going on at home and what was going on with myself in general.
It was an eye-opening experience because I was always that person to my community. Oh, look at that young man doing this, because I had worked as a child as an actor, and all the time I would hear, that's Malik, he's doing that. But now I was a bunch of many Maliks and many who I felt like, wow, I could learn so much from this person who's talented as a dancer, but they can also act. It was just, I don't know, it was like our own little black arts movement for young Harlem kids, and I thought that was pretty cool.
My mother found out about Impact through Sister Betty, who's the mother of Chappella Stewart, who's one of the original staff members. She actually came up with the name Impact. I wasn't doing anything on Saturdays, so my mother insisted that I do it. I actually did not want to do it. I looked at the flyer, it said something about singing and dancing, and I had no interest. But that's how I got here. But I always tell people I ended up staying because I believe it was like one of the first weeks, and one of the members who was a little bit older than me was teaching me some dance choreography, and I felt comfortable doing it. So even though I didn't really like to dance, I wasn't really good at dancing, but I was in an environment where my peers made me feel comfortable doing something new.
Knowing that there was a place to go to every Saturday, sometimes every Wednesdays or Thursdays in the Impact office, to a great safe space, and knowing that you won't be judged, knowing that you'll be supported, you will be guided if anything. You won't be pushed 3 steps backwards when you try to take 2 steps forward.
There's something about it that just makes you smile, makes the community smile. It kind of gets hope. And the training is great. It helps people to discover who they really are inside and really develop themselves and want to develop themselves. And I think that's really what has made Impact stay around so long and what will continue its existence.
The Impact model is like if we created a better singer, actor, dancer, that's good. We're proud of that. We're happy about that. If we've created a better person, we created a leader, if we created someone who's going to school and getting their degree, then we've done our jobs.
Education and youth and education is really a passion of mine because, so many young people are told that they can't. And even having a place like Impact tell you that you can, and yet being surrounded with everything else, it's so important. And yet sometimes can still get lost. And so I just felt like it was important to continue to submerge them with that, as much as possible. You can, but not just you can, but this is how.
when we were rehearsing at City College, I knew I was going to school. It was just something that I was building towards, not just dreaming about. And I think for young people, especially Black and brown young people, to see that you can do this. There are others just like you who are making those steps at Yale, Columbia, Princeton, historically Black colleges, Howard, Hampton, that it's something just that's going to happen in your life. That is your next step.
Every single Saturday, it was always about yes, it's amazing that we can sing and dance and make all this amazing art. But, what's even more important, the more important piece is the leadership training portion. And so I always took that away with me, and I learned the importance of arts and activism. And I always identified as an artivist. I think that is a really important part of my identity because that, for me, inspired things that I did afterwards.
One of our impact slogans, which says, what we do now matters forever. I think that's something that I take forward with me every day, and knowing that I can continue to impact change. So now, even as a principal of my school, I'm thinking about what are the changes that I am impacting every day in the lives of the kids that I touch, and trying to carry the positive message that impact had for me into my students each day.
I'm an impact mom, right? It's been amazing so far. I was pregnant both times, never stopped performing. My kids were pretty much born into impact. Still, one did the boot camp process, the one is currently in it now. But it's been nothing but amazing listening to them learn information and listening to the credo at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for school.
Impact is important because it really is a place where people can come to be themselves. No matter what's going on in the rest of your life, no matter where you're not feeling protected or accepted, Impact is a place where you can come and you truly know it's going to be a safe space. And when you have a safe space, you can express yourself, and that is so important to a person's humanity, that level of self-expression and acceptance among your peers.
There's programs like Impact raise the esteem of young women because it teaches about respect. Respect for self, respect for others, respect for one's body, respect for one's person as a whole. I've always felt respected when I walked through Impact's doors, and always felt like I was home because we treat each other like family and with respect at all times.
To my everyday people in the everyday struggle.
It's sort of when you take a step back, and then because when you're in something, you sort of take it for granted. When you take a step back and you realize what this tiny little germ of a thought could then flourish into, and what the opportunities that now lay ahead of us, it's sort of overwhelming, and you get goosebumps. We have amazing talent, we have amazing opportunities, but we're really about the work.
Clearly, if you have this awesome program that's been here for 20 years, established all of these wonderful people like myself who are alumni that are willing to give back and love the program so much, Impact's never going to die.
Something that I learned when I was in boot camp is that what we do now matters forever. And as long as we continue with that passion in our heart, Impact will be here for 20 years, and then 20 years after that, and then 20 years after that, and then 20 years after that, because a positive thought cannot be denied. As you continue to press forward and to do these things, all of the love and the light that you carry with you will push forward and push through. So just as we continue and change to get to this point of 20 years, there's 20 years coming down the line, because there's still work to be done. There's still work to be done. As long as, I will say this, as long as there's work to be done in the village of Harlem and around the world, there will always be an impact.
Hey, hey, hey.
What is Impact?
It's not a game.
What is Impact?
It's not a game.
How come it's not a game?
Because what we do now matters forever.
How long is forever?
Forever and ever and ever and ever. Para siempre, para siempre, para siempre.
The I stands for?
Inspiration.
M.
Motivation.
P.
Preparation.
A.
Activism.
C.
Commitment.
T.
Teamwork.
And our credo is?
Check this out. You ready?
We are youth activists who view the creative arts and leadership training
as a way to change ourselves in the world in a positive way.
We believe that we must be the message that we bring.
Through hard work, focus, discipline, unity.
And the principles of SOS, safe space, outstanding effort, and service to our family, friends, and community.
And our motto is?
Keep a positive thought because a positive thought cannot be denied. Peace.
Keep a positive thought because a positive thought cannot be denied. Peace. That's it, right? No, that's not it.
Just know that you have it, a beautiful magic in your eyes. Magic.
Thank you. So, we got a quick introduction to IMPACT. I'm going to invite Baba Jamal to come back on camera, and if we can pin him, that would be helpful. And I want us to get into conversation about IMPACT. You know, we saw some brief pieces of what it was, but let's talk about its founding. So, Baba Jamal, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Yeah, so we can talk about its founding. Let's give us the history, when it was created, why it was created, who created it, and then I want to also ask you a little bit about some of the components of it, because we heard some things in there. I heard somebody say leadership training. I heard somebody say boot camp, right? What are the components that make up IMPACT? But let's talk about its founding.
So the founding was in 1997, and I had been doing volunteer work at a place called the City Kids Foundation that was located in Tribeca. And in my years at City Kids, some of the people they came through, City Kids had something called the Coalition, where young people would talk about issues in their community. And these were young people from all over the city, black, brown, red, yellow, a real rainbow coalition of young people. Some of the people that came out of City Kids that I had an opportunity to work with and train are Donald Faison, Malik Yoba, Lisa Carson, and it was amazing work. And one day I was coming home. It was a hot summer day, and as I was approaching my building, there were women gathered around this young mother, and the men standing a few feet apart. This young woman, this mother, son had been shot, and he was shot at a party. He was 16 years old, and his younger sister was there. And as he was telling his younger sister to go home, a kid that was trying to talk and push up on the sister got into an argument and took out a gun and shot Andre, and he passed away. His mother, Sister Lauren, was a mother who had been on public assistance, worked her way off of that, got her GED and her associate's degree, was working as an executive secretary. And when she found out that her son, her man-child, had been killed, the apartment was too small to contain her grief. And she went out in the street and was crying. And my wife and other women in the building and on the block were around her, consoling her. And we men were gathered watching the women cry, helpless. And I had an out-of-body experience. I thought this could have been Mississippi after a lynching. This could have been South Africa after a tire burning. This could have been Los Angeles after a police shooting. And I said, I have to do something right here. This is great work that's happening downtown, but I have to do something right in Harlem. What could have happened if there was a program that Andre was in, or better yet, the brother who didn't understand, how to deal with his rage, his violence that shot Andre. We start, and at this time, Giuliani was the mayor, And similar to what we're seeing now with the big ugly bill, where all of the cuts are made, but money is poured into policing and concentration camps. The same thing was happening in the city of New York. Giuliani was enriching the landlords, over policing, uh, fueling, filling up Rikers Island and the prison systems, but they had cut social service programming, they had cut after school programming. So I sat uh, with my wife Joyce Joseph, who is an actress and a writer and a producer, and had modeled, was the first Black woman on the cover of 17 magazine, and Rosa Rivers, who runs New Heritage Theater, and talked about starting something in the community. So with no grants, with no permission, and I have to say that I at first uh, talked to some people about, funding the program and going out with proper, with a proper budget and to pay the instructors, and people didn't seem interested in doing a program like this in Harlem. And I was sitting at home, really kind of sad about this, and I'm seldom depressed, but I was depressed. And my wife, who wanted to see me home more, said, I want you home more, but not like this. And I told her what my frustration was. And she said, how did the Black Panther Party start the breakfast program? And how the Panthers started the breakfast program was, first of all, recognizing a need in the community, um, then going to different stores in the community and getting donations of food, and then going to community centers and churches and asking for space. Some people said no, but enough people said yes to start the program. And so, without a grant, and certainly without permission, Panthers started a breakfast program that in each city, you might start out with 10 kids, then soon became 20, then 100. And within 6 months, the Panthers were feeding about 50,000 kids nationally. So that's how we started Impact. Joyce Joseph, Rosa Rivers, and myself, and then Courtney Bennett and Raymond Johnson joined us. First started meeting in Menacing Townhouse, and then we started having space given to us at City College. So we're part of the CUNYverse. We were rehearsing at Everett Davis Hall and other spaces, and then between there and Columbia University, where I teach. And the idea was to create a safe space. One of the foundation principles of Impact is called SOS, saving ourselves, not save our ship. And it stands for safe space, outstanding effort, and service to our family, friends, and the community. And from the beginning, we knew that we wanted it to be a leadership training and creative arts program. People didn't quite understand that model then. They thought if it's a leadership training, then that's what you do. If you're a theater company, that's what you do. But in the spirit of the artivists, of our artivists throughout history, people like Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee and Harry Belafonte and Paul Robeson, who all of these young actors, when they were young, looked up to. What is going to be the activist component of what we do? And the other thing that happens in Impact is that we do workshops where young people talk about what's going on in the community. And sometimes it's visits to different community programs, or it's our own service that we do, food giveaway, clothing giveaway, performing at juvenile detention centers and prisons and in hospitals. And their own stories is the foundation for Impact material. So all that we do, the spoken word, the drama, the music, is all created within Impact. It's also a rite of passage program, because when you audition for Impact, it is not about talent. What we want to see when you audition in Impact, in fact, I think the second year we were doing auditions, we had a number of kids show up, and my wife and I and a couple of other Impact staff were at a table, and I leaned over and I said, Joyce, I said, this young sister Keisha, she's great. We're going to take her. And Joyce kind of said, Jamal, you're going to take all of these kids, and it's true. The audition process is to see if they are willing to try and if they can work in a group. And from there, in terms of the training, and some of our members wind up more on the technical side. They work with the sound department. The video that you saw was produced by Impact in combination with some of my grad students. I'm a professor of film at Columbia University, and so when I talk about my projects and the work that I'm doing, there's some of my grad students that want to come down, whether New York is their home or not, and be involved in mentoring young people. So that's the effort that comes together. And so you first become a member of Impact Boot Camp, which means that the audition has earned you the right to get the training to see if you can be an Impact member. And boot camp is a mixture of, learning the history of Impact, the Credo, the history of arts and activism, the history of the program, and also creating work that comes out of your particular boot camp. There's also exercise, there's martial arts, there's community service. And at the end of about 8 weeks, boot camp graduation is all the members. And so when you saw in the film clip, some of the young people had on black shirts. They hadn't earned their Impact shirts yet, or even their boot camp shirts. They have to earn the boot camp shirts, and when you finally are able to be an Impact member, there is a program where the boot camp young men and women come in, they march in, they first have what we call the board of review, where we want to make sure that they know the motto, know the credo, talk about their community service. And everybody who's gathered, Impact members and alums, their parents, community folks, their friends, we asked the village, in the spirit of the African village, where at a certain age, young women were taken away and they were given training from the women in the village. The young men were given rites of passage training. They come back to the village as children no longer, but as men and women. And we asked the village, have you seen enough for these young people to become Impact members? And it's kind of already set up and fixed that everybody says, no, they're not ready. We haven't seen enough. And then we gathered and we said, what might appease the village? And they said, a song. And that's when Impact members will perform their show. And then there's the vote in their welcome in the village. So that is the rite of passage model. And from then the training continues, the service continues, and the performance opportunities. And as I said, it has ranged from schools and senior centers and hospitals to the public theater, the Apollo Theater, and the 2008 Oscars. One of the songs that we created in Impact is Raise It Up. It was in the film August Rush, and we were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song, and you can look that online in the 2008 Oscars. There are 30 Impact members performing that at the Academy Awards. Amazingly, after that performance, we were back in New York a few days later, performing at a juvenile detention center. And the Oscar performance we're very proud of, but it was even a stronger performance because they understand that the foundation of what we do and the roots of what we do is service to our family, friends, and the community through the performing arts, through leadership training, and through young people understanding that, they may come into Impact wanting to be stars and rappers and dancers and whatever they want to do, but they leave understanding that when you combine an activist and an artist, you have an artivist, and that they're going to college. And that's why part of the boot camp graduation is the young people introduce themselves, and they could be 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old. They always declare where they're going to school. So they'll say their name and they're going like, I'm going to Hampton University, or I'm going to Howard, I'm going to Columbia.
I love that. And I'm going to stop you right there only because I want to talk more in detail about your college prep.
About the college
part
prep,
of it,
absolutely.
and how we roll
Yes.
that. But let's take a minute now and actually look at one of the products of Impact, and let's take a look at a video that you all did called One Love, a redo of Bob Marley's One Love with a few other folks from Japan and South Africa, right? So let's take a look at One Love.
Love ain't just a feeling, love is the vibration. Fly is aviation as we spread across the nation. One lifetime, take time for life's taking. We the greatest, they hate us, get it taken. And yeah, we make a statement, but we didn't need to break it. The movement we created just got everybody saying, if love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration. If love is what we're making, every day's a celebration.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Somebody put in the chat, this is the medicine that I needed today. Indeed. Thank you. So let's talk about this because, first of all, great work. And as you mentioned earlier, your young people are also producing these video clips. Was that video also produced by Impact?
Yeah, that was produced by Impact. You can tell from some of the masks that we saw that that was done during the pandemic. Um, and uh, we have been uh, blessed to be visited and to visit young people and work with young people from Japan, from South Africa, from Cuba, uh, from different theater companies from around the country, so that our young people can talk to them, hear their stories, share their stories, and create together. And Baba Harry Belafonte, it was his idea, right? So we recorded One Love. We also have another song that we did called Stir It Up, but our rendition of Stir It Up goes Stir It Up for Freedom. And it's a very activist, revolutionary song. We actually did that at Baba Harry Belafonte's music festival that he did in Atlanta about 7 years ago. So that was the idea behind the song. But the context from that is Vosa Rivers. So New Heritage Theater is the parent organization of New Heritage Theater, which does plays and readings, Impact Repertory Theatre, our flagship program, and New Heritage Films. VOSA is the reason South African theater came to the United States. A brother named Duma Ndlovu, who was Stephen Biko's writing partner, fled South Africa after Brother Biko was arrested. And he came to New Heritage Theater. And a woman named Yuri Kuchiyama told Duma about New Heritage Theater. Yuri Kuchiyama, the great Yuri Kuchiyama, who was Japanese, who was beloved in the movement, who shares a birthday with Malcolm X, May 19th, who was the only Asian member of the Organization of African American Unity. And when Malcolm was assassinated and the guns were being fired, when people were running for the door, Yuri ran to the stage. You can find photos in Look magazine where she is cradling his head as Malcolm was losing life, as he was becoming an ancestor. So Avosa then visited South Africa, met met Bogani, uh, and brought over some South African plays, Woza Albert and Asinamali, and eventually Serafina. And in that spirit of activism, and in the spirit and the way that Bogani created, and the way we used to create in the village, I want to go back to that kind of getting in the room and creating what ideas came up. So that when I came to Vosa and saying that I wanted to do Impact Repertory Theater. The other part of the story is Vosa and I have been working together for 40 years. Vosa was the first person that embraced me when I came out of prison with plays and wanted to be a playwright and a director. And I said, I want to do this program. And would New Heritage be a conduit? And for the first and only time in 40 years, Vosa told me no. He said, we will not be a fiscal conduit. He said, this needs to be a New Heritage program. And if you know Vosa Rivers and the Harlem Arts Alliance, this is what Baba Vosa does. He embraces you, he empowers you, finds way kind of in order to build that. So that was that collaboration and why you saw the international flavor from Impact from Harlem, South Africa, Tokyo, Japan, and doing that. And that's the spirit of the Rainbow Coalition and understanding how our struggles are connected and how art can bring us together to celebrate struggle, to celebrate resistance,
All over the
but
world.
importantly, to celebrate love.
Absolutely. I want to come back to that part in a little bit later when we talk about the international work and scope of what you do and also the outreach of it. But I'm going to ask our team in the background to bear with me because I want to skip the other clip that we had next, but I would like us to move to the clip that is background on you, Baba Jamal. When I did the introduction, there were a few things that I intentionally left out because I wanted us to just share this in a very particular moment. There are two pieces. One, you were one of the youngest members of the Black Panther Party here in New York, right? And you were also a former political prisoner. So before we get into that, I want to just show this clip that gives some background on who you are and why you specifically were the one who created IMPACT. There's a reason. So if we can go to the background on Jamal clip, that would be really great. Thank you.
You cannot take moments like this for granted. And I mean this not only as it relates to our performances, I mean this as it relates to your life. Do not just throw it away. We started IMPACT when a young man in our building got shot to death. His mother's apartment was too small to contain her grief, and she went out on the street and she began crying. I have to do more than just watch the women crying. I've got to do something right here where I live. And so with no money, with no permission, we started IMPACT. What is IMPACT?
It's not a game.
How come it's not a game?
Because what we do now matters forever.
Okay, understand that line. What we do now, this is now. In IMPACT, we're connecting arts with youth development. We think the creative arts is a way to build confidence, community, and critical thinking. We do leadership training, writing workshops, homework help, and creative labs where we're creating songs that are original.
I started IMPACT when I was just 14 years old. My father was murdered, and my mother was looking for some type of program to keep me engaged. It gave me the ability to stand up and not be afraid of how my voice sounded or what I had to say.
We are mothers and fathers who've lost kids to gun violence. I lost 2. I am very proud of IMPACT because you are making a difference. I can't bring my kids back, but I could certainly try to help another mother or another child from getting killed, and we have done that.
Safe space becomes extra important because I know what it is to be in a broken space. I never knew my real dad. And though I was just 15, joining the Black Panther Party was as much, if not more, about the road to manhood than about political struggle and commitment. As a result of my involvement in the movement in the Panther Party, I spent a total of 9.5 years in prison. When an older prisoner named Mr. Cody came up to me and he said, "Young blood, let me tell you something. You can serve this here time, or you can let this here time serve you." While I was in prison, I formed a theater company. I earned 2 college degrees. When I came out of prison, I decided to use arts and activism to promote social change and transformation.
Changing lives, opening up doors, creating opportunities. That's what's most important about impacting people.
I'm choosing today, I'm finally free. I'm changing my life, 'cause happiness is in me. It's gonna be alright.
It was in my 50s that I realized that this was my calling. For me, the work that I do with young people now is about this simple question. How do you transform pain to power? I'm Jamal Joseph, and this is my encore.
Choosing today to be happy.
Thank you. So let's talk about you. That's a lot. You are thrusted into this change-making space of activism at a young age. Most 15-year-olds are not looking at the Panther Party. What drew you to that? And then talk a little bit about that experience, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you ended up in prison. But let's talk about how a 15-year-old in Harlem ends up a member of the Panther Party.
One was the assassination of Dr. King. I went to a community center called the Menacing Townhouse that had a summer camp and a center in Harlem. And you'd go to the center, and there'd be it's where I, first started learning karate. There was college prep programs, there was dance, there was art, there was rites of passage programs, and it was coming home from the center on the day that Dr. King was killed. But we were also members. There was a chapter of the NAACP Youth Council, so we collected books and notebooks and stuff for the Freedom Schools, and met the Freedom Riders, and was doing the work and went on marches. And so Dr. King being killed radicalized me, but it was also a visit by H. Rap Brown, Iman Jamil Al-Amin. His wife had been a minister. So that summer in camp, the director, Miss Thorne, Gladys Thorne, got Sister Karima, his wife, who had been a minister, to bring him to camp for a weekend to be a guest speaker. And I came back done. My family didn't know what had happened to me. And Rap had a way of putting it down. He had the name Rap Brown for a reason. He talked about, you know, you've been brainwashed. You wear black to funerals and white to weddings. Angel food cake is the white cake. Devil food cake is the black. Even Santa Claus. You tell me how in the hell a fat redneck camel breath honky slides down a black chimney and still comes out white. You've been brainwashed. But then he talked about the struggle and all of those things in resistance. And that made me seek out the Black Panther Party with two older guys who were administering. And when I came in, I'll tell this story quickly. It's in my book, Panther Baby. I thought, and the guys who took me there, that it was a militant organization that hated white folks. In fact, on the way there, one of my friends said, when you get in, there's no getting out. It's like the mafia. And I was like, Grandma gave me a 9 o'clock curfew. What do you mean I can't get out? And then another friend said, you're going to have to kill a white dude to be a Panther. Matter of fact, a white cop, and you got to bring in his badge and his gun for proof. Inside, I was like, I'm in the church choir. I got to kill a white dude. But, you can't be a punk in front of your boys. The first political education class, they're going over the 10-point program. And this being, I know we'll talk a little bit about it, this being the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party, that 10-point program that was written 60 years ago could have been written last year. But it talks about housing, education, healthcare, a trial by a jury of our peer groups, an end to police brutality. Nothing in there about killing a white dude, bringing in a cop's badge and gun. I'm not listening. The brother gets to point number 5, which is about education. We want an education that teaches us our true history and the true nature of this decadent American society. And I jump up, choose me, brother, arm me, because I'll kill a white dude right now. Professor, the whole room gets quiet. And the brother calls me up, Lumumba Shakur, and he looks at me and the whole room is quiet. And he's sitting behind a desk. He reaches into the bottom drawer. My heart is pounding in my skinny little chest. I was like, he's going to give me a big ass gun. And he hands me a stack of books. Autobiography of Malcolm X, Soul on Ice, Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. And we all had the red book. And I'm thinking this is the test, right? I had played hooky to come here. You giving me books? And I said, excuse me, brother, I thought you were going to arm me. And he said, excuse me, young brother, I just did. And key to that, just bear with me one more minute. He said, young brother, he said, let me ask you a question since you came in here so mad at white folk. He said, if all of these vicious police that are out here beating people up, locking people up, shooting people down, if they were black and everybody being brutalized and killed were white, these buildings that are falling apart with no heat, rats running up and down, no windows, if all of the slumlords were black and the people living in there were white, He says, and these jive fascist politicians, Congress, Senate, the president, the justices of the Supreme Joke, if all of them were black and all the poor oppressed people were white, he said, would that make things right? And I thought, and I said, well, no, sir, brother, it seems like that would still be wrong. And for the first time, he smiled. He said, that's right, young brother. He said, this is not just a race struggle for civil rights. This is a class struggle for human rights. And it was a shift in consciousness that day. And when we talk about struggle, it's the shift. And we talk about this in Impact and the Rainbow Coalition that Fred Hampton built, not Jesse Jackson, understanding that this is class warfare, understanding what's going on and understanding building coalitions. Yes, there were no members of the Black Panther Party who were white, but we created a national committee to combat fascism so that groups like the Young Lords, groups like Iwa Kum, in Chinatown, the Harmonious Fist, groups like, the young, Rising Up Angry could understand that we could be revolutionary comrades in a fight for social justice for everyone. So those are the lessons. A few months later, I was arrested and on trial as the youngest member of the New York Panther 21.
I was getting ready to get to that. I was going to say, let's talk about that because I want to figure out how you go from being a 15-year-old. You shared how you got into the Panther Party, but your activism and your involvement actually was, it seemed like accelerated, and you became an active member.
It did, because I was that kid that wouldn't go home. Right, Afeni Shakur tried to kick me out the first day. You know what I mean?
Shakur is who?
Is Tupac's mom, and Afeni is known for not just being Tupac's mom, but she defended herself in the Panther 21 trial. Her and Sechueo, Michael Sechueo Tabor, and they were able to speak to the jury directly. They were able to question witnesses in a way that the lawyers couldn't, and talk about fascism, talk about lynching, and talk about that, and said, and do you understand why the Black Panther Party, why Black people would want to arm themselves for the purposes of self-defense? And so Faney tried to send me home. I kept coming back, and then when you got that kind of fire, then you get people like, I was fortunate to have people like Sechueo and Daruba and Lumumba and Afeni take me under their wing. And so I became a section leader, and then of the high school cadres. When they indicted the Panther 21, that number 21 was arrived at of anyone who was in a leadership position. So although I was 15 turning 16, I was in a leadership position. I got some of the additional training, and I was arrested and charged in the 21 case, and we were facing 300 plus years in prison, and bail was set at $100,000.
And let's put this in context for folks who are not familiar with the Panther 21 case. This was, at the time, the most expensive trial in the state of New York. This was one of the longest trials. Now, eventually, you were acquitted. Talk a bit about how long it took the jury to acquit the 21 in this trial.
So the whole journey of the 21 case was a 2-year journey. We were arrested in 1969. The trial itself lasted, I think, for 11 months, which is long for a trial. We decided that we would put the government on trial, that we were political prisoners and prisoners of war. So we never recognized the authority. One of the points in the 10-point program is that we want to be tried by a jury of our peers. And it goes on to say a peers is someone from your same social, racial, economic background. As you know, juries are usually selected in an hour or two, maybe one afternoon. Our jury selection was a month because we fought to impanel the jury through the voir dire process, challenges, and we wound up getting the most diverse jury that Manhattan had ever seen at that time. In those days, juries were basically white men, even in New York County, Manhattan. And so we had, I think, 4 women on the jury, 4 Black folks on the jury. It was a very diverse jury. And the foreman was a brother from the West Indies who was a classical music teacher and conductor, Mr. Fox, who had this beautiful Caribbean British accent. I'll get to that in a second. So the trial became us challenging everything that they did. And there were two undercover cops in it, Gene Roberts and Ralph White, who had infiltrated the Black Panther Party. When you think about movies like The Departed, where people go deep, deep undercover and do it, but not only infiltrated, they were agent provocateurs. Yewa, for example, we'd go to a building and there'd be a young mother that would be there that would show us her apartment where there was, where she had to tie up her infants and put panties around their ears at night. And Afeni said, "Why do you do that?" And she says, "As you can see, my apartment is clean, but roaches have crawled in my baby's ears and in their nose. And that's why we have to do it." So we come back and have a meeting, and Afeni would lay out, that we would help the tenants organize a tenants association, that we'd get lawyers who were volunteering to create an escrow account, so that we could show that the rent money was being used to fix the building, and the Panthers would be there, that if the marshals came to evict, we would prevent them. Yewa, who was one of the undercover cops, would stand up and said, "No, what we should do is find the landlord, drag him from his house, have a people's tribunal, and then lynch him, stuff a rat in his mouth and lynch him from a lamppost." And we go, "Yeah, let's do that." The younger brothers. And Fanny says, and this is a question, Lumumba, we have to ask ourselves. And then what happens, right? What happens to the people in the community? Afeni's brilliant cross-examination of Yewa, exposing him, of saying, because he said he was a police officer and a Panther. She said, "You said you're a police officer." "That's right, and a Panther." He said, "So when you would get intoxicated and go up on the rooftop and fire your gun in the air in Harlem, not knowing where the bullet would land, were you being a cop or a Panther? When you seduced women in the Black Panther Party, what were you being? When you showed adolescent boys how to slit somebody's throat with a bayonet, tell me which one you were being." That testimony, her cross-examination, is one of the key reasons at the end of the trial that the jury took 3 hours to deliberate. And when they came back, oh, by the way, there was a table full of guns that they opened their case with. When they raided the apartments, they found rifles and pistols, and they laid it out. And we talked so much about self-defense and the constitutional right to bear arms that the judge dismissed the gun charges because he thought the conspiracy case was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And after 3 hours, Mr. Fox, as the jury foreman, is the one that gives the verdict. And they said, "As to count one of the indictment, how do you find the defendants?" And he said in this beautiful West Indian British voice, "Not guilty." As to point them, and as a musician, he made it a symphony, "Not guilty." And when we talked to when the lawyers talked to the jury after, they said, after the judge dismissed the gun charges, there was nothing to consider. This was clearly a frame-up. It kind of set the way political prisoners and prisoners of wars would try their cases, but also this Panther Defense Committee that was young people from the anti-war movement, people from the civil rights movement, came out to support. There were press conferences where Harry Belafonte and Ruby Dee and Ozzie Davis came out in support of what was happening. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund was there as co-counsel on our bail hearings, recognizing we were being prosecuted. So these cases, and your work has been about this, is a way to not only fight for the people who have been falsely imprisoned, but a way to educate people about the system and a way to bring communities together. Many people's first political work has been around one of these cases, and fighting for justice for political prisoners.
Yes, indeed. And so there's a whole lot that we can dig into. I'm going to encourage everybody to, because there's another thing that Baba Jamal is, which is an author. And he has a book that I absolutely love called Panther Baby. I encourage you all to pick it up. He goes into greater detail, not only about his history as a Panther, his history, as a young person before he joins the party, but also as he is transforming his tools. And so I want to move to that really quickly. Talk to me about what happened in prison that made you become attracted to theater specifically. And because that seems to be the point where you begin to look at art as a tool.
The atmosphere in the community in those days uh, was that the struggle was every place, right? And there was a powerful Black arts movement. So in New York, there was places like the East, and then on 125th Street, the East Wing. And this is when you would get Sonny Rollins and Sun Ra, The Last Poets, Amiri Baraka, Sonia Sanchez. Uh, you had National Black Theater, the New Lafayette Theater, that were putting on plays that had titles like "We Righteous Bombers," you know. And so you would, you know, you would do your political work in the day, and then you'd be in these sets at night where it was energized, you know, where the music and the art and the poetry was reinforcing. So I started doing a little bit of acting and writing a little bit of poetry, uh, you know, as a young Panther, as part of the Black Arts Movement. When I got to Leavenworth Prison, and was there with Baba Sekou Dinga and Sundiata. We had an amazing Panther BLA section, you know, in Leavenworth Federal Prison. Uh, some of the brothers kind of came up to me and they were like, you know, yo, you was down with the Panthers and the BLA, and I went, yeah, and it was like, you did karate out there? Because by this time I had become a sensei. And I said, well, yeah. And this is, you know, pre-Facebook and social media. I was like, yeah, I did a little. And somebody said, and you did the plays out there, huh? And I was like, how do they know that? And they went, I said, yeah. And the brothers walked away. I was, damn, man, did I violate the prisoner code? You know what I mean? They seemed upset. And the next day they came back and they was like, why don't you pull something together for Black History Month? I went to the prison library. The only Black play was Raisin in the Sun. Uh, and I came back and I was like, brothers, you know, there's only one play, but you know, you know, this is a story that has dynamic women characters. It's really about a woman, a Black matriarch trying to pull her family together. I'm not joking about this response. It was like, don't even worry about it, brother. Just point out 3 or 4 dudes in the yard that you want. We'll put a dress on them. I was like, no, this ain't gonna work. But these brothers are determined to do this play, and that's how I wrote my first play. And it became this theater company, but it also became some of the Latino brothers showed up, a couple of the white brothers, so we expanded it. We had this theater collective, and every few months we put on a play, and I started to really feel that power in prison, what it did in terms of involving people and for social change, because in our section of the yard, you know, everybody has their section. You did have Latino brothers and white brothers and Hawaiian brothers telling their stories and making their contribution. The level of gang violence within Leavenworth dropped to almost zero from us being able to have these conversations, these rehearsals, and bring it out in the plays. And my degrees are in sociology and psychology. And my plan was to come out and pursue my doctorate in psychology, continue to study acupuncture, and do this holistic practice. After our first play, there's about 1,000 men in stood up and gave gave us a standing ovation and was shaking hands with each other. And I literally had this revelation on stage. I was like, Jamal, you can come out and go to school for another 6 or 7 years and mess with one person's mind at a time, or you could keep doing this theater and mess with a whole lot of people at once. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do theater and film, and I was able to pursue that at places like Third World Newsreel, you know, when I was paroled.
Wonderful. All right, we're gonna move to another clip because I want to talk about the women of impact and share some of their experiences, and then we're going to go into talking about the college prep and support. So let's do these two back to back. The next clip will be on the women of impact, and then we're going to go to college prep and support. And thank you for those that are putting your questions in the chat. I see 3 questions already. Please continue to add those. We're going to get to the questions in about another 15 minutes. So we're going to ask you to write the questions in. But let's go to those two clips really quickly back to back.
The point of today was to bring some of our very strong alumni back so they can share their stories with you. You can see where you can go from here. Everyone does not go into the arts, from Impact. They introduced themselves. They told you guys what they're doing so that you know that you have older sisters that you can reach out to, trying to bridge the gap in the community of Impact. Yvette, for example, amazing dancer, singer, but she is in medicine now, and she has turned her pain into power, which is what we all want to do as African American women, turn our pain into power.
It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be poetic. It could be very simple, but just, a subtle reminder of who you are, why you're awesome. And then we can share it.
To feel my fears, but not let them overcome or hinder me.
Motivated to be my best. I am capable.
I can get a higher GPA in school.
I'm equipped to make life hard decisions.
One that I take from Impact, God made a beautiful me.
I will learn to speak up more and not be as quiet.
So mine are kind of driven by this entire pandemic and COVID, but because I am safe, I am held, I am grounded.
Participate more and not be so shy to actually share.
I wake up in the morning thankful for life.
I am allowed to feel, but I am not allowed to sit. And that just means I'm allowed to feel my emotions, but I feel them and I let them flow as opposed to sitting in them and let them fester.
I also put to gain more self-confidence and succeed well in school.
I can make mistakes as long as I learn from them and not repeat them.
Every cell of my body radiates with perfect health, and every thought in my mind radiates with grounded wisdom.
And to always protect and support Black feminine artistry.
I only have two.
That's fine. Go.
Okay, so I said I will go to college, and I will succeed.
Love it. Love it.
Okay, love one another, protect one another, watch each other's back, but above all, keep a positive thought.
Positive thought cannot be denied.
Just be strong, strong in love. Keep your hands reaching up.
Impact mandated every member of the company to know which college they were going to or wanted to go to and what they wanted to study. Regardless of if you went to the school that you mentioned, you knew you was on the path to higher education. I like to call it Impact's positive brainwashing.
I created Impact Rep College Prep in 2013 when I met a young man who was struggling with those next steps. He had a desire, he knew where he wanted to go, he knew that he wanted to go, but he didn't have the map to get to that destination. And then I realized that he was not the only one that had those same issues, and hence Impact Rep College Prep was born.
Impact really encouraged me to not only push through all of my hardships, but use that as motivation to keep pursuing my dreams and really allow me to heal through my craft.
I have been accepted to Morgan State University, Delaware State University, and Bowie State University. Impact has inspired me to want to go to college because they have helped me realize that I want to learn more about my history and my culture, and that is why I want to minor in African American Studies.
Impact has inspired me to go to college by changing my point of view and making me explore outside of New York City and experience different things so I can actually change the world than it already is.
Impact makes it a sure thing to know where you're going and what you want to study, you know. I always knew what I wanted to go to college for from a very young age. I was looking up colleges, so I always had to focus on going to college and excelling.
Impact has inspired me a lot because at first I didn't know where I wanted to go at all. And they just made me keep my mind and my options open. And they have actually led me in the path to wanting to do journalism and dance especially, because psychology, I always knew I wanted to do it, but with journalism, with all the activism and the things that I've been learning from all the community service we've been doing, it just has made me interested in wanting to write about this to spread the knowledge to everybody else.
Impact really helped me by producing my one-man show, which I recently rewatched. I raised over $3,000 to go to London, where I studied at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. And Impact also inspired me by me sitting in my dorm room my first year of college and watching the Oscars with my entire college class, and people were like, wow, that's your company? I was like, yeah.
Impact cultivates a space where you can't, it's like there's no reality where you're not going to college. Not only inspired me to go to school, but motivated me to stay in school, and then prepared me to be efficient, to prepare me to excel.
Some of the various schools that our Impact alumni have graduated from, Hampton University, Howard University, Spelman, Morehouse, City College, Columbia University, Brown University, Johns Hopkins, Yale University, of course, just to name a few.
Impact influenced me to go to college because of exposure. I was exposed to a lot of people that looked just like me, that were going to college and doing it and making it seem like so much fun, and I thought, you know what, I could do it too.
I didn't know what I was doing, so Jordan helped me, and then it was a breeze. And then once I got accepted, they made sure I had everything I needed to get here.
Being surrounded by educated people who looked like me and were kind and just taught in a way that was understandable was very nurturing for my education, and just knowing that any college you want to go to is achievable is very impactful in my college experience.
If for no one else, I'm having fun with this one.
I would like to see the funding from the SOS Fund help Impact College Prep create more extended scholarships for the young people. I would like to see an extensive college tour. I would like to see SAT prep and Regents prep as well.
Impact always inspires me to do great things because of our motto, keeping a positive thought, because a positive thought cannot be denied.
Just be strong, strong in love. Keep your hands reaching up.
Yes, indeed. So let me ask you, because most arts organizations that do this work, we would imagine that there would be a strong push to get their members, their participants into careers in the arts ASAP. Why the push for higher ed in Impact? Why such a very, you said it's mandatory that people actually identify the college that they want to attend? Why the push for that?
There is, I think, in Actors Equity Association, which is the union that your Broadway actors, off-Broadway actors belong to, I think their membership is around 30,000. There's probably maybe 1,000 actors, 2,000 earning a living doing that. The same is true of the Screen Actors Guild. So we approach the arts by saying, you will always be an artist while you create, and you will always find a place to share your talent if you understand the community and the world is your stage. But if you take a pathway of saying that I'm going to be a Broadway star or a film star, you limit your options, and you also limit what the universe might have planned for you in terms of doing that. So we incorporate in the leadership training that, you know, being in a theater company, especially a highly disciplined company like Impact, teaches you to show up on time, teaches you to learn your lines, to do what you have to do. By the way, we rotate, there's no stars kind of impact. Everybody learns the material. Leadership training teaches them to kind of think critically. They develop their writing skills. And these are things that they take with them to college. And we say, if you know that this is your love in your life, then get a degree in musical theater or in music or in that. And some have. For example, Malik, one of the people in this video that talked about raising money from his one-man show to go to London, got a degree and studied Shakespeare for a year at the Globe Theater, came back, has a master in theater education from City College, and works as an educator when he's not working as an actor. So that's the idea. And Sister Dietrich is very right. We call it brainwashing. We said there are two things that we want that you can't sleep through the night if you haven't two things. I'm getting my education and I'm giving service, whatever that means. We want them to wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh my God, I haven't given enough service, because you're releasing that energy into the world. Some of the members that we saw that were younger in this video have gone on. Vernon Riley, who went to Yale and was talking about being a principal, last year just got his doctorate in education from Harvard and is designing curriculum. Michelle Payne, who was there, got her master's in psychology. She's a clinician, and she got her Doctor of Divinity degree. She's the Reverend Dr. Michelle Payne. One of our other young men who went to Lehman College got his master's in education. He's an assistant principal. So I look at all of these young people who are working in education now, or working in social work. Our other young lady is an epidemiologist, right? She lives in Maryland, and she's doing that. So that when you see that reach into the world, and they are still thinking creatively, still thinking about their impact experiences, passing that on to their students, and many of them, a number of them are parents now. That's when you plant that seed that you have to do this, right? You're going to do this. These two things, whatever that means to you, right? Continue to learn and kind of continue to give service. In terms of the Women of Impact, I still serve as the executive artistic director, but the day-to-day of Impact right now is women-led. Sister Dietrich Bolden is the artistic director. Jordan Isler, who founded the college prep program. And here's the great thing about leadership. It's working when your young people are coming to you saying, why don't we start this program? Or here's how we can make things better. When they kind of call together and they said, they will affectionately call me Baba Jamal or Uncle Jamal. Can we have a meeting with you? And they're sitting down challenging us to do more, or can we have the space to create these programs? And it's how the program has not only lasted for 27 years, but continue to evolve with the fresh ideas of our leadership.
Thank you. All right, so we are moving along because I know we only have about another 35 minutes in total, but I want to move to another clip where we look at the international reach and scope of Impact and hear from the men you talked about, Mbogeni and Gama. So if we can go to the clip with Mbogeni.
My name is Mbongeni Ngema. I'm an artist. I'm a creative artist. I was introduced by Duma Ndlovu to Voza Rivers and New Heritage Theatre way back in 1984. We were doing Woza Albert downtown in the village. After watching the play, Duma invited Voza to come and see the play, and he then introduced me to Voza and said Voza is running a theatre in Harlem. And of course, I'd never been to Harlem before. I, of course, had heard about Harlem, the Apollo Theatre. I had read about that, and I knew that a lot of musicians came from Harlem, came from the Apollo. jazz musicians that we listened to way then back home. And then we went to perform in Harlem. First night, it was sold out. Black people only. I'd never seen anything like that outside of South Africa. I mean, we had performed on the West End in London for a year to only white people.
When the show opened, a miracle happened. I mean, we were sold out. I think New Heritage was meant to take about 150 or 200 people. But I mean, you know, we had in excess of 300 people every day. People used to bring their pillows. People were hanging on rafters. And I think the New York Times did an article and they were just talking about that exuberant spirit. And it was just magic. We transformed Harlem, we transformed our own community, we transformed the whole United States, just based on that one performance.
We were missing performing to black audiences like we were doing back home in South Africa. And suddenly, there we were in the middle of Harlem, 125th Street, at New Heritage Theatre. And all these black folks are there that look like me and Percy, and they're enjoying the performance, and at the end of each performance, they give us a standing ovation. I never felt so much home like I did when I was at New Heritage Theatre. And the rest is history. That invented and cemented a 40-year relationship between Duma, Voza Rivers, and Mbongeni Ngema. I always talk about commitment to your work. You have to be so committed as an artist. One day I asked them a question. Okay, we've been together for so many months. What should we call ourselves? And one young lady raised her hand. And I said, what should we call ourselves? She said, well, you always talk about commitment. Why can't we call ourselves committed artists? And that's how the name Committed Artists came about, of a company that now has existed for almost 40 years, that has produced all these plays, some of them that you've seen here, like Sarafina, Aslamani, Rosa Albert, Township Fever. The other one that's coming is called The Zulu. And the movies that we are now producing, Sarafina, the movie, which some of you may have seen. And in an amazing way, Rosa 2 days ago said to me, remember the group IMPACT that I took you to see some years ago? I said, yes, I do. He said, you created that. It was your model of committed artists that made us create IMPACT. I said, yes, I could recognize that. I could see the family when I saw IMPACT some years ago. But today, it has grown so much higher than what I'd seen Voza some years ago. And I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you. I never knew that I'd come to the United States and find a home, and find my people, and find my community, my theater community, and feel like I have not yet left South Africa. And that's what New Heritage Theatre became to me.
Thank you. So I want to just say something really quickly about Mbongeni and Duma. Duma is a longtime friend and comrade. We always in Brooklyn like to claim him because he spent so much time here in Brooklyn also. Even though he was a Harlemite, we always say that he was actually a Brooklynite as well. But I went to school at Martin Luther King High School in '86, and I believe '87 or '88, the cast of of Sarafina, began to present their play at Lincoln Center right across the street. They ended up going to night school at Martin Luther King High School. At that time, we had an organization in our high school called the Black Youth Liberation Organization, and we were doing a lot of anti-apartheid work. We ended up connecting with the cast, and we did a whole lot of work. These young people were not just actors. These young people were committed to the work, not just the craft of acting, but they were committed also to the message of the plays that they were doing. So we can see the impact, again, pun intended, of how they were able to be effective at what they did. Can you share a little bit about the role that Mbogeni and Duma and Voza actually, the impact they had on you all in creating this approach, not just the institution itself, but the approach?
Yeah, it's what we talked about before, that idea of collectively sharing ideas and creating the work that could become a message that goes out to people and to leave people thinking about what they could do beyond applauding, beyond you know, tapping their feet and bobbing their head to the music, and grabbing a line from the poem here and there. What can they do beyond to carry that message forward? Um, Serafina centers around a massacre of students in South Africa, the Sharpeville massacre, and Bogani had his theater company in his house, kind of working out what the play would be about and what the message would bring. And it remains one of the most powerful pieces of theater to be on Broadway and to be on stages around the world. But it moved people to action, right? So it's what the artists were doing, you know, in Serafina and Umasakela, Miriam Makeba, Fela, these artists that were coming out doing this music and theater that were powerful, but that were compelling people to do something. And it was the strength of that and people in the anti-apartheid movement and the international boycotts and people realizing I've got to find something to do, and there's other ways to participate. There are all kinds of ways to participate in the struggle. One of the things that we used to say in the movement is let the artists create, let the doctors heal, let the bakers bake, let the builders build, but let them all do it with a revolutionary consciousness and with the spirit of that movement, right? So you may not be on the front lines, but you're a baker, so you would have bread for the people, So the civil rights movement, for example, people would be marching, but there would be advanced teams that made sure along the way there were sandwiches for folks, there was waters for folks, there were houses where people could come rest, or if someone got sick. This is why these election laws have made it illegal to give food or water to somebody waiting online. The reactionaries study our struggles and try to figure out how to come at us, not just by imprisoning us and framing us up and jailing us and shooting us down, but what is the infrastructure of that work? The assault on the arts that we're seeing now is another example. The fascist white supremacists understand the power of art. So this is why there's this severe dismantling of arts funding and education funding, because they understand that we have used these as weapons of liberation. That it's not all front lines and the freedom fighters and those, it's people working in all of those spheres. And this is, I think, the lesson of resistance, of protracted warfare that we have seen around the world is what we need to lean into now. It's not over till we say that it's over.
That's right.
And as long as we find ways to create, to heal, to feed, to embrace, right, to get it out, our struggle will continue to live. And as Dr. King says, the arc of justice, the arc of the universe always bends toward justice. And as we say in the liberation struggle, and liberation.
And we can stop right there. I want to open up to questions, and thank you all for the questions that are in the Q&A chat. For the sake of time, and you let me know if this works for you, Bob Jamal, I want to just read all of the questions slowly, and we can just try to go through them as opposed to doing one by one. We have about another 20 minutes left. There are 8 questions here, and I'm going to try to, some of them have been answered, so we're going to see, but let's try to get as much of them as possible. One question: I am a youth studies alum currently living in Alabama and would love to know what resources are available to build skills and knowledge to bring the model of the IMPACT program to my local community. So that's one. Haley says, as the lead of a program for teens myself, I see a lot of young people overwhelmed with present day challenges, especially environmental concerns in my case. How do you encourage youth to take action where they are already facing such mountainous challenges? How do you teach not just you can, but this is how? Elisa asks, I have been researching your incredible work as well as your book, Panther Baby, which I'm very interested in reading and sharing in my organization's library that young people frequently access. Panther Baby reflects on growing up as a movement leader in the 60s and 70s. What do you hope leaders, particularly young people, will take from it? That should be readers, not leaders. But what do you hope readers will take from your book? There is a question from Isha. Are there any social emotional learning competencies intentionally embedded in IMPACT? Good brother Austin asked the question, can you discuss the challenges of securing funding, particularly in the current political landscape? How can we leverage the power of fundraising within our own community so that we don't have to keep seeking funding from others? Lastly, how can we support IMPACT?
These are great questions.
Yeah. There's one more, I'm sorry, really quickly, and we can see if we can get all in, but Carmen asks, in an era of digital separation, how do you protect and cultivate safe in-person spaces for young people as we use the arts to keep our stories alive, similar to the tradition of the griot? How does this shared story directly connect to our future in service and communities? And then lastly, Kathleen, what is giving you hope now as we continue to navigate the same long, ongoing fights for justice and liberation? Those are a lot. Sorry.
No, that's a lot. And help me, if there's certain things that I didn't hit,
yes.
As we kind of go through it. One of the things that I'm really happy about is we had an IMPACT graduation in December, was the number of young people that 16 new members coming out of boot camp. The auditorium at Harlem Hospital that gave us the space for that day was filled with parents and with friends, siblings who were excited, and people who came out who couldn't wait for the next boot camp. And it's proof that we can create safe and exciting places for young people, so that they don't think that the people that they're chatting with on their phones and going to social media say that they're their friends, right? People that they never met. But this is my dear friend. And they're applying peer pressure and giving the wrong advice, and people getting lost on that. What happened with Mayor Mondani's campaign is that he was brilliant about engaging people through social media and then getting them on the streets. That was the organizing tool, right? With the arts for us, we talked about this before with the theaters and with the artists. It was getting them to come to the plays, to the concerts, and then getting them to follow up by getting to the streets and organizing and finding out what is their way to participate. If they were volunteering at a liberation school or at a breakfast program or at a free health clinic, that might have started out as a community center or the Panther office just on Saturdays, where doctors and nurses were volunteering volunteering their time, like Dr. Berkman's dad, right? Alan Berkman, and bringing medicine and treating folks. Um, my oldest son has sickle cell anemia, and we were at a conference that he helped organize years ago, and it started out with a elderly white doctor, a hematologist whose life's work had been sickle cell. He didn't know we in the audience. We had never met him. It was sicklers, caregivers, families, stakeholders, and he started out like this. Were it not for the Black Panther Party, the awareness of sickle cell would not be what it is today. They were the first to start sidewalk testing and to write about it in the newspaper. So these streets are our battlegrounds. If people see a presence, if people see that we care, if we are volunteering, for programs that are giving away food. My friend Pastor Mike Waldron in First Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem gives away food each Friday. They have a program called Breakfast Before Books, inspired by the Black Panther Party. People are doing liberation schools. There's arts organizations. So at first, it might be dragging our young folks to these programs. And the other thing is continuing to understand that if people don't respond right away, here's one of my favorite stories that I like to share about mentoring and education. One of my first jobs when I came home from prison was there was a program called Changing Scenes, and they were working with young men who were on probation. As you can imagine, all of these young men were Black or Latino, and they were doing the resumes and the GED. And they said, but we want to do an arts component. Jamal, we think you'd be good for that. I was like, yeah, I'm excited. I built this theater program in Leavenworth. I'd only been home for a few months. I'm on parole. I had my curriculum. We're going to do a short play at the end of the cycle. The families will come out. It took me 15 minutes with my first group of young men to realize, throw your curriculum out the window, because they were beefing in the program. They were talking about somebody else. They were going to go get the piece and run up to the Bronx and get somebody else. So we would do a cycle. We would do a freestyle, and people would talk about what was happening with them, and that's what the program would be that day. It's the one job that I thought that I failed at, because we never did the play. We never got the parents out. 10 years later, I'm walking through with Jamal, with my oldest son. We're walking down Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, and there's a young man about to get into a gypsy cab. This is pre-Uber. Show you how long ago this is. He's about to get into a gypsy cab. He sees me and he stops and he says, "Mr. Joseph, you don't remember me, but I was one of these knucklehead kids in that program, Changing Scenes." I right away defaulted to mentor mode. "No, you weren't a knucklehead." He was like, "Mr. Joseph, I was a knucklehead." And every week you would come in and you would give us something positive. And I wasn't trying to hear it. He said, "But here's why I'm glad I'm seeing you now." 2 years later, it kicked in. It actually kicked in. And I'm glad I'm seeing you because I'm a college graduate now. I'm a husband and father now, and I'm a social worker. So the other thing to remember about this work is that sometimes we want like instant results. And if the people that we're mentoring or that we're trying to serve don't respond right away, we get upset and we think they ain't ready or we're not ready. It's like Tupac wrote in "The Rose That Grew from Concrete." Where did that rose come from? Somehow a wind blew a seed from a garden someplace and it landed in concrete and survived and pushed through. So we have to see the work in that way. So in terms of, and so there are those models, and I know you'll give your contact information out. And then, so all of those questions about what might happen locally, we're going to start some online training in the impact methodology and what we're doing. And so we'll make sure that people have that. The other part of the program is our community service piece is very important to us. And so there's community service that we do that might be a block cleanup, that might be a food giveaway, that might be, a visiting Harlem Hospital. We have relationship with institutions where Impact has performed and where they're welcome to do service and to do that. The feeling that young people get when they do service and see the effect that that has, and especially if they plan the event. It's not just all the time that they're showing up, right, to give away, but that they help to plan the event creates what I call a movement high and an activist high, just to say that feeling of service is amazing. Remember, the Black Panther Party had if you ask any Panther veteran, and we don't refer to ourselves as former Panthers, and you could everybody who's here in this workshop in this class, tell them that they can say Baba Jamal told me to ask you this question if you meet a former Panther. What were you taught to believe above all other things? And of course, we had the 10-point program, the 26 rules of discipline. We read Malcolm, we read Fanon, we read Mao. I guarantee if they were really there, they would answer the question something like this. We were taught to serve the people and love the people and to serve them mind, body, and soul. That was the greatest compliment you could get in the Black Panther Party. Not that you're like, I'm a bad dude or I'm a rough and tough sister. You know what I mean? Not that I'm really kind of politically astute, but you would say, that brother, that sister is a hard worker. They're a servant of the people. So that whatever your program is, let there be a community service component of it, and let it be something that the young people, your students and your mentees, can help to co-plan and organize so that they can understand what that feeling is and understand that wherever they are, these skills, these organizing skills, these love of the people, service of the people skills become the engine that unifies us, along with the idea that we're doing this not for awards, not for money, but for love, for love of the people.
So there's a few questions here that I do want to lift up so that we can actually double down on some of this. One question is, and I think you answered it a little bit in terms of where we are now, and you are someone that's been engaged in this work for decades. We talked about the current conditions right now. What continues to give you hope?
I'm amazed at not just with Impact, but when I go speak, and at Columbia, within the film program, and I'm teaching graduate film school students, but I get students who come visit from different programs, how much they know about the history of our struggle and the analysis of what's going on, right? I'll get a phone call from students just to say, even before Trump's press conference, that Professor Jay, this was all about the oil, right? And then here comes Trump and doesn't even pretend that it was about democracy, right? He spends the majority of his press conference, talking about the oil. So how astute young people are in terms of understanding what's really going on and their ideas about what they have to do about organization and getting together. I think what I have to share with them is this idea of two things: that it was really motivated by love of the people. That was our true barometer to measure what we were doing good. Sister Asada, Mama Asada, uh, was when she came, she was still in college, and she was a community worker, and she was assigned to one of the breakfast programs, and she used to have a hard time getting up in the morning. I don't think that Mama Sada, even as an ancestor, will mind me sharing this story. I was out on bail on the Panther 21 case, and I was a field lieutenant, because when we were out, Afeni, Daruba, Sechuayo, and I, we were expected to do work. It wasn't just like Panther 21, show up at this particular rally or go to Jane Fonda's penthouse. We had to be up in the morning, doing our chapter work. We were officers. So I was a field lieutenant in Harlem, and I disciplined her by saying, you know, you should be suspended, but you're going to do the breakfast program. You used to rotate because you had to be up real early in the morning, you know, to get there to do the breakfast. And I said, you doing the breakfast program every day for a month, and if you miss one day, you're going to be suspended. Asada winds up coordinating the breakfast programs for all the New York chapters. That discipline came for a love of what the program was, right? Her work as an organizer and what she did in understanding that community work, how important that was. So we think about her as combatant and, all of the other stuff, but her level of community work. And then she was, we would sell the Panther papers. Dr. Kim Holder would tells these stories as a young Panthers of how they would go out, and it was Asada that showed him how to go to from the senior centers to the bars to relate to people, you know, to kind of really talk about that. So it's really, kind of rooting that in service. And I want to share this lesson from Afeni. I always like to share this lesson. We're walking through Harlem one day. We're both on bail on the Panther 21 case. And Afeni gives me the most profound lesson in organizing. She said, Jamal, the goal of the Black Panther Party is not to have every man, woman, and child become members of the Black Panther Party. We're here to hopefully show the people the possibility of struggle through example. And if we are a good enough example, you won't need a Black Panther Party. Consciousness will be raised and people understand how to fight. So that's why it's so important to listen as we organize, so important to lead by example, and that our job is to make sure that if we're not there, that we've been able to share and mentor 10 other people that can step up. And that's why it's so important to spend that time with the young people. And I want to go back, even if it seems like they're not listening, talk anyway. Play that album anyway. Drag them to that play anyway. Bring them to the rally anyway. You will be surprised how those seeds take hold and begin to blossom.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I want to close out with Austin's question. How can we support Impact?
So the Impact website, I don't know if we
I
have that.
I put it in the chat. Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
put it in the chat.
I
People
did.
can call, people can make donations. We're a 501c3 to Impact. So that's the tax deductible donations. And for people who might have an interest in coming to visit an Impact workshop, and then they might have a specialty that they want to do a workshop, a one-day workshop in photography, in healing, and in something else, we welcome that. As you can see from the clips of the workshops, guests come like Bogani did, like Mothers Against Violence did, and do amazing workshops for our young people. We want to expose them to the village, and not only in terms of the village seeing who they are, of them being seen, but seeing everything that exists in our village of struggle and liberation.
Wonderful. All right. I want to close out with this last video clip, Leaders of Today. And before we do that, I wanted to just lift up one of the Panther ancestor who wrote a poem that I think very much captures the duplicity, a multiplicity rather, of what it means to be a servant of the people. And it's called Who Am I? And it gets different titles. Who are you, I'm asked. If I give a name, it only tells what I am called. Having had many names, it still does not say who nor what I am. To the oppressed, I am the angel of deliverance. To the oppressor, I am the angel of destruction. So who I am depends on who you are. Albert Noah Washington. So we can go to that last clip of the Leaders of Today. We'll close out with that. Everybody, please join me in thanking Jamal Joseph, Papa Jamal Joseph, for sharing his experience, his history, his brilliance with us. Papa Jamal, thank you so much. Thank you for all
Thank
that you
you
have
so
done.
much.
Thank you for what you continue to do. Appreciate you all. Before we totally sign off, I'm going to invite everyone to join us again next week, where we will be viewing Angola, Do You Hear Us, filmed by Lisa Jesse Peterson. Following that, the next Wednesday, we will be screening the Black August Hip Hop Project documentary, and we'll close out with that. Thank you all for joining us. Have a safe, productive week, and continue to do the work, y'all. We keep us safe.